Have you ever imagined what it would be like to live a life of endless luxury, surrounded by wealth, power, and admiration? In this classic story, Damocles, a courtier in ancient Syracuse, is given the chance to experience what he believes is the perfect life, only to discover a hidden truth. Could you handle the pressure of a throne if it meant living under a constant threat? And would you still crave authority if you knew the sacrifices involved? As we journey through the Sword of Damocles, we'll uncover how power often comes with unforeseen risks. If you enjoy exploring timeless fables from history and mythology, be sure to subscribe to our channel, Best of History and Mythology. Leave a like and hit the notification bell so you never miss new stories. Damocles, a courtier in the kingdom of Syracuse, spent his days marveling at the wealth and grandeur surrounding King Dionysius. Unlike other nobles, Damocles was drawn to the endless power and influence that defined the king's life. Every day, he would admire the royal banquets overflowing with rare foods, the lavish decorations, and the finest robes draping Dionysius's figure. Damocles saw the palace as a paradise, one that only the powerful could enjoy without restraint. Eager to voice his admiration, Damocles would often flatter the king with grand words, exclaiming how truly fortunate Dionysius was to enjoy a life free of worries and filled with such luxury and authority. The courtier believed Dionysius had everything a person could desire: a position at the top of society, complete control over others, and the respect of everyone around him. To Damocles, the king's existence seemed nothing short of mythical. One day, after enduring enough of Damocles' praise, Dionysius decided to offer him a taste of this life. He invited Damocles to sit upon the throne, to live for a day as a king himself, and experience the reality of power and riches. With overwhelming excitement, Damocles accepted the invitation, certain that he was about to discover what he believed to be the greatest life imaginable. Dressed in the finest robes and adorned with a crown, Damocles was seated on the magnificent throne, surrounded by the opulence he had long admired. The grand palace, filled with precious metals and elegant decorations, mirrored the wealth and status that he had associated with the king's power. As servants approached, they offered him an array of exotic foods and rare wines, each representing the luxury only the powerful could afford. Every wish he expressed was fulfilled without question. If he wanted music, the finest musicians would fill the room with melodies. If he desired entertainment, dancers and storytellers would perform the greatest fables of the world. The courtiers around him treated him with respect, addressing him as Your Majesty, and he basked in the admiration of those who once considered him an equal. In this moment, Damocles felt as if he had entered a realm of myth, a fantasy world he'd only heard of in the most famous stories of history and mythology. Grandeur seemed endless. He could hardly believe he was truly living the life of a king, a life surrounded by splendor, power, and the reverence of an entire court. Yet, beneath the surface of this paradise, Damocles noticed the unwavering gaze of Dionysius, who remained in the shadows, observing quietly. Damocles dismissed it, focusing instead on the pleasures and indulgence that his newfound position brought. He had stepped into the role of royalty, enjoying all the privileges that came with it, and for now he wanted only to savor each moment. As Damocles reveled in the luxury of kingship, his gaze drifted upward and his heart froze. Hanging directly above him, suspended by a single delicate strand of horsehair, was a gleaming sword. It hovered inches from his head, its point poised, a symbol of imminent danger, capable of ending his life in an instant. The once perfect image of power and splendor transformed into a chilling reality. He was no longer surrounded by comfort, but by threat and fear. Suddenly, the lavish meals spread before him seemed tasteless, the soft cushions beneath him stiff, and the majestic throne uncomfortable. Each moment brought a new surge of dread as he remained painfully aware of the sword above. This revelation struck deep. The luxury he had envied, the authority he had desired, all of it was shadowed by the constant threat of losing everything. Reflecting on Damocles' story, what would you value more? A life of luxury with constant risk, or a simpler life free from hidden dangers? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. Dionysius approached and gestured toward the weapon, explaining, "This is the Sword of Damocles, a reminder that power and peril walk hand in hand. Those who sit on the throne live under this constant shadow. The price of authority is vigilance and fear." Damocles understood at once that this symbol was more than a mere prop. It represented the very essence of his king's life, a life that combined wealth with ever-present danger. The sword taught him that true power wasn't as glorious as the fables of the world had made it seem. In every story of history and mythology, from mighty kings to legendary heroes, there was a hidden struggle, an invisible weight, and now Damocles understood it firsthand. Power was never absolute freedom. It was a balance, a perilous line where one wrong move could sever the thread and bring ruin. As Damocles sat frozen on the throne, the dazzling allure of power now seemed like a mirage. The sword above reminded him of an uncomfortable truth. True authority came not with freedom, but with chains, binding one to responsibilities, dangers, and endless vigilance. The luxury and admiration he once envied faded into insignificance compared to the constant awareness of the threats surrounding the ruler's life. Dionysius watched as Damocles wrestled with this revelation. He explained that kings and leaders in history and mythology were often isolated, burdened by the decisions they had to make, and haunted by the threat of betrayal. In the court, nobles and allies could shift their loyalties, and the same people who once admired a ruler's strength might, in another moment, conspire to see him fall. This delicate balance, the ever-present danger, was the reality behind every fable of the world where power was portrayed as blissful. If you're captivated by tales like the Sword of Damocles and want to learn more about history and mythology, join us here on Best of History and Mythology by subscribing, giving us a like, and hitting the bell icon to stay updated with new content. Damocles realized that each act of judgment, every choice of alliance, and even the royal protection of his own throne came with a cost. The responsibilities of leadership weighed heavily, requiring wisdom, caution, and resilience against the invisible forces that tested the strength of every ruler. The privileges he had so deeply desired were, in reality, merely illusions concealing the unending sacrifices and fears that haunted the powerful. The story of the Sword of Damocles was no longer a fable but a living truth. Damocles saw himself as a symbol, a figure representing the lesson that behind every legend, every tale of grand kings and warriors, lay the reality of power's burden, a burden that only those on the throne could understand fully. His admiration for the king's life shifted to empathy, as he understood that wealth and glory could not shield a ruler from the perpetual threat that hung over him, like a sword waiting to strike. The weight of realization bore down on Damocles, and he found himself desperate to escape the throne. He called out to Dionysius, confessing his fear and begging to be released from the position he once envied so deeply. Dionysius granted his wish, allowing Damocles to step down from the throne and return to his previous life, now humbled by the lesson he had learned. The sword above Damocles represented the danger that often comes with power. If you were in his place, do you think you'd still want to sit on the throne? Share your answer in the comments below. Damocles walked away, no longer filled with admiration for the luxuries of power, but with a profound respect for the hidden struggles of those who bear its burden. The Sword of Damocles had taught him that life in a position of authority was not the paradise he once believed. Instead, it was a delicate balance of responsibility, vigilance, and sacrifice, a truth known to rulers and leaders throughout history and mythology. He understood that the legends and fables of the world often celebrated power and wealth without revealing the unseen dangers that came with them. Damocles came to realize that true happiness was found not in endless luxury or authority, but in the freedom from fear and the absence of the sword that hangs over those in power. The story of the Sword of Damocles became a timeless symbol, a reminder that fortune often comes with hidden costs, and that a life of safety and simplicity can hold greater peace than one ruled by the constant threat of downfall. From that day forward, Damocles chose to live a life of contentment, free from the envy of others' power. He learned to appreciate his own place in the world, leaving the fable of the sword as a cautionary tale for all who sought to chase the glimmer of wealth and influence. Thank you for watching. We'll see you in our next video on Best of History and Mythology.